Kai Reeves adjusted the magnetic boots that kept him anchored to the hull of the derelict freighter Mercantile Dawn. The vast emptiness of space stretched around him, punctuated only by distant stars and the looming shape of the Tartarus Nebula. His breath fogged the inside of his helmet as he studied the peculiar seam running along the freighter's outer hull. "There's definitely something here, Nix," he said into his comm. "This modification isn't on any of the ship's official schematics." "Confirmed," came the melodic, slightly rasping voice of his partner. "Energy readings suggest a shielded compartment, approximately 40 cubic meters." Nixara Vesh, a Vraxian with iridescent scales that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue depending on the light, monitored the scan results from their patrol vessel. The Vraxian's four eyes, two large primary ones and two smaller ones above them, tracked multiple displays simultaneously. "That's a lot of space to hide," Kai muttered. "The manifest only lists agricultural equipment bound for Proxima Colony." The captain seemed nervous during our inspection request. "Wouldn't you be? Eclipse Syndicate enforcer breathing down your neck." Kai referenced the hulking Tauren who had watched their boarding procedure with barely concealed hostility. Kai activated his plasma cutter, the blue flame hissing in the vacuum of space as it made contact with the hull. "Going in, keep the channel open." 20 minutes later, Kai stood inside a hidden compartment lined with stasis pods. The air smelled stale and sour. He pulled off his helmet, heart pounding against his ribs. Each pod contained a small form, children of various species, some he recognized, others he didn't. Their biosigns were weak but stable. "Nix, we've got at least 12 juveniles here, different species, all undernourished." He approached one pod containing a small Arcturian child no more than 7 standard years old. The child's normally luminous skin was dull, patches of scales missing. "They're in bad shape." "Slavers," Nixara's voice hardened. "Worse, look at the markings on these pods." Kai's flashlight illuminated symbols that made his stomach turn. "They're marked for specimen acquisition. Eclipse is selling these kids to biotech firms for experimentation." A small sound drew his attention to the far corner of the compartment. Behind a pile of empty nutrient containers, a pair of large, terrified eyes stared back at him. An unfamiliar species, a small humanoid with delicate tendrils extending from their skull and patches of downy fur. Kai knelt slowly, setting his weapon aside. "Hey there, it's okay, I'm not going to hurt you." The child shrank back further, trembling visibly. "I'm Marshal Kai Reeves," he said gently, showing his badge. "I'm here to help." "Marshal," the word came out as barely a whisper, "like protector." "That's right, my partner and I are going to get you all somewhere safe." The child's gaze darted to the pods. "The others, they sleep long time, bad people come sometimes, take one away, not come back." Kai's jaw tightened. "What's your name?" "Miri, I hide when they comes." "Smart kid," he activated his comm. "Nix, I'm bringing them out. Alert Central Command, we need medical support and—" His comm crackled with static, then Nixara's urgent voice broke through. "Kai, we have a problem. Just intercepted a transmission from the freighter to a nearby vessel. They're calling for backup Eclipse enforcers. And there's something else. I ran the authorization codes from our inspection order. They're counterfeit." "What? How is that possible?" "Someone at command doesn't want us finding this shipment, Kai." The implications hit him like a meteor strike. If Eclipse had infiltrated galactic enforcement, they couldn't trust the usual channels. These children would disappear into the system, or worse, be returned to their captors. "Nix," he said, decision crystallizing as he looked at Miri's frightened face, "prep the med bay and disable our vessel's tracking beacon. We're not calling this in." "Kai, that's against every protocol." "These kids won't survive protocol, not this time." He reached out slowly, offering his hand to Miri. "We're taking them somewhere safe ourselves." After a moment's hesitation, Miri placed her small hand in his. Her skin felt cool and fragile against his palm. "How will we protect them all?" Nixara asked, voice soft but resolute. Kai began the process of deactivating the stasis pods. "Together, like we always do." In the distance, the patrol vessel's sensors detected an approaching ship, its signature matching known Eclipse Syndicate vessels. Time was running out. What had begun as a routine cargo inspection was about to change everything. Kai didn't know where they would go or how they would manage to protect 12 alien children from one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the galaxy, but one thing was certain: he and Nixara had just become these children's only hope. The patrol vessel Firehawk drifted silently in the shadow of a small asteroid, engines powered down to minimal life support. Inside the cramped med bay, 12 children from 6 different species huddled together on emergency cots. Some still half sedated from the stasis pods, others wide-eyed with fear and confusion. Nixara moved among them, her scaled hands remarkably gentle as she administered fluids and nutrients. Her secondary eyes remained fixed on the medical readouts, while her primary ones focused on each child individually. The Lumary twins are stabilizing, she reported, her voice a low vibration that seemed to calm the children. The Arcturian still shows signs of scale degradation, but it's responding to treatment. Kai leaned against the doorframe, watching. In the 12 years they'd been partners, he'd never seen this side of Nixara, a maternal tenderness that transformed her typically stoic demeanor. "Any word from your contact?" she asked without looking up. "Lena will meet us at the coordinates in 6 hours. She's taking a huge risk." "We all are." Nixara finally looked up, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of stress in Vraxians. "I accessed the GEA database before disabling our comms. 3 similar agricultural shipments have passed through this sector in the last month alone, all with falsified inspection waivers." Kai's hand tightened into a fist. Someone high up is involved. "Director Vanth. Maybe, or someone close to him. Either way, we can't trust anyone at headquarters." The vessel's emergency lighting cast shadows across the small chamber as they fell silent. The weight of their decision pressed down on them both. By disabling their tracking beacon and going off-grid, they had effectively ended their careers. 16 years of service for Kai, 22 for Nixara, gone in an instant. "I should regret this," Nixara said softly, stroking the tendrils of a sleeping Setarian child. "But I don't." Kai moved closer, his hand finding her shoulder. Her scales were warm beneath his palm, slightly raised with emotion. "Neither do I." Their eyes met and something shifted between them, a boundary crossed. A small voice interrupted the moment. "Where taking us?" asked Miri, who had refused to leave Kai's side since the rescue. Kai knelt before her, "Somewhere safe. A friend has a place where we can hide while we figure things out." "Not send back," fear trembled in her voice. "Never," Nixara answered, her tone leaving no room for doubt. "You are under our protection now." The ship's proximity alert suddenly blared. Kai rushed to the cockpit, Nixara following close behind. "Eclipse patrol cruiser," Kai muttered, scanning the readouts. "Must be searching the sector for us." "Can they detect us here?" "Not if we stay powered down and the asteroid shields us from their scans." He watched the cruiser's trajectory, "but we're trapped until they move on." Hours passed in tense silence. Nixara returned to the children while Kai monitored the cruiser's movements. When he finally rejoined her, he found she had fashioned a game using medical supplies that had the children engaged and distracted. "They're still out there," he said quietly. "We'll miss the rendezvous with Lena." Nixara nodded, her expression grim. "We need a new plan." "I might have one." Kai pulled up a star chart on his datapad. "The Helix Nebula mining outpost, abandoned 3 years ago when the deuterium veins ran dry. Radiation levels minimal now, and it's equipped with basic life support systems we could reactivate. Eclipse knows about it. It's not on any current charts. Company went bankrupt, never filed the proper decommissioning paperwork." Nixara studied the schematics. "We'd need supplies, medical, food." "I have credits, we can stop at Jensen's Point. It's a smuggler's haven, no questions asked, no records kept." A small form appeared at the doorway, one of the Lumary twins, its translucent skin pulsing with faint bioluminescence. "Hungry," it said simply. Nixara immediately retrieved a nutrient pack, helping the child consume it. As she did, she looked up at Kai, determination hardening her features. "We do this, there's no going back, we become fugitives." "We already are." Kai's gaze moved over the children in the med bay. "But these kids deserve a chance. The outpost could buy us time to gather evidence against Eclipse and whoever's protecting them at the GEA." Nixara's secondary eyes narrowed in thought. "With enough proof, we could force an independent investigation." Miri approached them, sitting beside Kai, her tiny hand slipped into his. "Stay with you?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. Kai and Nixara exchanged a look that contained years of unspoken trust and something new, a shared purpose beyond duty. "Yes," Kai told her, "we stay together now." The patrol cruiser finally changed course, moving away from their hiding spot. Kai powered up the engines, plotting a course for Jensen's Point. As the Firehawk emerged from the asteroid's shadow, Nixara's hand found his on the control panel. "For them," she said simply. "For them," he agreed, "and for us." The vessel accelerated into the darkness, carrying its precious cargo toward an uncertain future. Behind them, careers and oaths abandoned. Ahead, the promise of sanctuary and the beginning of something neither of them had dared to imagine before. 3 weeks into their exile, the abandoned mining outpost had transformed from a cold, sterile facility into something resembling a home. The central hub, once filled with dust-covered mining equipment, now hosted a makeshift common area where the children played, ate, and slowly began to heal. Kai stood at the viewport, watching the swirling gases of the Helix Nebula cast prismatic light across the outpost's exterior. Behind him, laughter erupted, a sound that had been absent during their first difficult days here. He turned to see Nixara teaching 4 of the children a Vraxian concentration game using colored stones she'd fashioned from mineral samples. Her scales gleamed in the artificial light, shifting from deep purple to indigo as she moved. "That's it, Javi," she encouraged the young Lumari twin who had successfully matched 2 stones. "Your memory is improving." The translucent child glowed with pride, its skin pulsing with bright blue light. Across the room, Miri was helping the smallest of their charges, a Cetarian boy they'd named Elian since he hadn't spoken a word since his rescue. She guided his 6-fingered hands through the process of folding fabric into simple shapes, something she'd shown surprising talent for. "Look," Miri called to Kai, holding up Elian's creation. "He made star." Kai crossed the room, crouching beside them. "That's incredible, Elian." He gently touched the boy's shoulder. "You're quite the artist." The Cetarian's large eyes, solid black without pupils, stared back at him, but the child remained silent. According to the medical database, Cetarians were empathic, able to sense the emotions of others. The trauma Elian had experienced must have been overwhelming. "He speaks here," Miri said, touching her temple. "Not here." She pointed to her mouth. "Is that right?" Kai asked, curious. Miri nodded, he scared still, but less now. Later that night, after the children had been settled in their sleeping quarters, Kai found Nixara in the observation dome. The nebula cast a dreamlike glow across her features as she studied a datapad. "Any luck with the transmissions?" he asked, offering her a cup of the herbal tea they'd purchased at Jensen's Point. "Some." She accepted the cup, her fingers brushing his. "I've decrypted portions of the Eclipse communications we intercepted. They're still searching for us, but they believe we've fled to the outer rim." "That buys us time." Kai settled beside her on the bench, "and the GEA files." Damning, her secondary eyes narrowed as her primary ones remained fixed on the data. "I've found authorization codes for at least 17 special clearance shipments, all signed by Deputy Director Mercer." Mercer? Kai's surprise was evident. "I served under him for 3 years. I never would have suspected." "Power corrupts," Nixara said simply. "The question is whether he's the highest link in the chain." Kai sighed, feeling the weight of their isolation. "We need more evidence to bring this to the Council directly, bypass the GEA entirely." Nixara set down the datapad and turned to face him fully. In the dim light, her scales took on a deeper hue, almost black with flecks of starlight. "I've been meaning to ask you something," she said, her voice dropping to a more intimate register. "What happens after? If we succeed in exposing Eclipse and their collaborators, what then?" The question hung between them, laden with implications. "I don't know," he admitted. "I hadn't thought beyond keeping the children safe." "The children have formed attachments to us, to each other." She paused, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "As have I." Kai felt something tighten in his chest. "Nix. We have worked together for 12 years, Kai. I have respected the boundaries between us, professional, cultural, biological." Her voice carried a tremor he'd never heard before. "But these past weeks have changed something." He reached out, his fingers tracing the line of scales along her jawline. "I've felt it too." Their foreheads touched, a gesture of profound intimacy in Vraxian culture. Her scales were cool against his skin, vibrating slightly with the rhythm of her dual heartbeats. "Whatever comes next," he whispered, "we face it together." Their lips met tentatively, an exploration of unfamiliar territory. Her mouth tasted of spices and something uniquely Vraxian, metallic yet sweet. As they pulled apart, a soft chime from the monitoring system alerted them to movement in the children's quarters. They found Elian standing in the corridor, tears streaming silently down his face. Without hesitation, Nixara lifted him into her arms, her scales shifting to a soothing lavender. "Nightmare?" she asked softly. To their surprise, the boy nodded, the first direct communication he'd offered. "Would you like to stay with us for a while?" Kai asked. Another nod. They brought him to the observation dome, wrapping him in a thermal blanket. The 3 of them sat together, watching the nebula's cosmic dance. Eventually, Elian's breathing steadied, his small body relaxing against Nixara's side. "Family," he whispered so quietly they almost missed it. Kai and Nixara exchanged a glance filled with shared understanding. Yes, Nixara said, her voice thick with emotion. Family. Elian drifted to sleep between them, his face peaceful for the first time since his rescue. Above them, the nebula swirled in patterns as complex and beautiful as the connection forming between these displaced souls. Former marshals, orphaned children, beings from different worlds finding each other in the vastness of space. Something was healing in this abandoned place, not just the children's wounds but something deeper, something like hope. They've found us. Nixara's voice cut through Kai's sleep like a blade. He was instantly alert, years of martial training kicking in as he reached for his sidearm. How long? He asked, already moving toward the monitoring station. Ship entered the nebula 20 minutes ago, eclipse markings running dark. Her scales had shifted to deep crimson, the Vraxian response to danger. I've initiated security protocols. Kai studied the tactical display, mind racing. How did they find us? The supply run to Jensen's point last week. Someone must have recognized us. The outpost sensors showed the Eclipse vessel maintaining a search pattern, methodically scanning the debris field that concealed their location. It was only a matter of time. Wake the children, Kai decided. Quietly, Emergency Protocol Alpha. They had drilled for this. The children knew to gather essential supplies and assemble at the emergency shuttle bay. As Nixara moved to rouse them, Kai accessed the outpost's defense systems. Minimal, but perhaps enough to buy them time. Within minutes, the children were assembled, faces solemn with understanding beyond their years. The oldest, a draconian girl named Tella, helped the younger ones with their emergency packs. The Firehawk is prepped, Nixara reported, returning to Kai's side. But we can't outrun an Eclipse interceptor. We won't have to. Kai pulled up the nebula's navigational charts. There's a gravity distortion point 2 sectors from here, remnants of a collapsed star if we can lure them into it. An alarm blared, proximity sensors triggered. The Eclipse ship had detected them. Get the children to the Firehawk, Kai ordered. I'll initiate the mining charges we planted in the debris field. Kai, I'll be right behind you. Their eyes met, a moment of fierce connection. Nixara pressed her forehead to his in the Vraxian gesture they now shared, then turned to lead the children through the emergency corridor. Kai worked quickly, fingers flying over the control panel. The outpost's old mining charges had been repurposed as makeshift defenses, not powerful enough to destroy the Eclipse vessel, but sufficient to create confusion. He was seconds from completion when the outpost shuddered violently. They'd been hit. Emergency lights flashed as atmosphere began venting from a breached section. Sealing the command center, Kai finished the sequence and sprinted toward the shuttle bay. Halfway there, another impact rocked the structure. A support beam collapsed, striking his left leg with crushing force. Pain exploded through his body as he fell. Dragging himself forward, he could hear weapons fire echoing through the corridors. The Eclipse boarding party had breached the outpost. He pulled himself up, every movement sending white-hot agony through his injured leg. As he rounded the final corner to the shuttle bay, he encountered 3 Eclipse enforcers, a Tauran and 2 humans in black combat gear. They raised their weapons simultaneously. Kai fired first, years of combat training guiding his hand. The Tauran went down, but not before getting off a shot that seared across Kai's right shoulder. He dove behind a cargo container, returning fire as the pain threatened to overwhelm him. A blur of motion caught his peripheral vision. Nixara had returned. She moved with the fluid grace unique to Vraxians, her body seeming to flow around enemy fire as she closed the distance. Her ceremonial blade flashed, a family heirloom she rarely used but wielded with lethal precision. In seconds, the remaining enforcers lay incapacitated. She was at Kai's side immediately, assessing his injuries with cool efficiency even as her scales rippled with concern. Can you stand? With help, his voice was tight with pain. She supported him, her strength surprising as always. Together, they made their way to the shuttle bay where the Firehawk waited, engines humming. Inside, the children watched with wide, frightened eyes as Nixara helped Kai to the medical station. Miri immediately came to his side, small hands offering comfort. Hurt bad? She asked, voice trembling. I'll be okay, he managed, though the room was beginning to spin. As Nixara prepped the vessel for launch, more explosions rocked the outpost. The mining charges had detonated, creating the diversion they needed. The Firehawk lurched as it detached from the docking clamps. Hold on, Nixara called from the cockpit. This exit won't be smooth. The vessel accelerated sharply, throwing them against their restraints. Through the viewports, they could see the Eclipse ship reorienting, attempting to pursue. Kai fought to remain conscious as Nixara executed a series of evasive maneuvers, using the nebula's gases and debris for cover. Pain pulsed through his body in waves. Almost there, Nixara muttered more to herself than the others. Just a little farther. The Eclipse vessel fired, energy beams cutting through the nebula gases. A glancing hit sent alarms blaring throughout the Firehawk. Then, abruptly, they were in clear space. The gravity distortion point loomed ahead, invisible but for the way it bent light around its perimeter. Nixara pushed the engines to maximum, skirting the edge of the phenomenon with precision born of desperation. The Eclipse ship followed, its superior engines closing the gap rapidly. "They're not going to fall for it," Kai said, struggling to stay upright. "They already have," Nixara's voice was cold with certainty. She executed a final, desperate maneuver, cutting engines completely, allowing the Firehawk to drift momentarily before firing thrusters at a precise angle. The vessel shot away at a tangent while the Eclipse ship, unable to correct in time, passed too close to the gravity distortion. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The pursuing vessel shuddered, then began to elongate as gravitational forces tore at its structure. Within moments, it had been pulled into the distortion, compressed, and twisted beyond recognition. Silence fell over the Firehawk as Nixara plotted a course away from the nebula. In the medical bay, Elian approached Kai and, to everyone's surprise, placed his six-fingered hands on Kai's wounded leg. A soft blue glow emanated from the contact points. "Cetarian healing touch," Nixara whispered, returning from the cockpit. "It's rare even among their kind." The pain in Kai's leg diminished, though the injury remained. The Cetarian boy looked up at him with those pupilless black eyes. "Thank you," Kai said softly. Elian spoke, his voice a melodic whisper. "Family protects." Nixara knelt beside them, her scales now the deep blue of emotional intensity. "Yes," she agreed, one hand on Elian's shoulder, the other finding Kai's. "Family protects." As the Firehawk accelerated toward open space, Kai looked at the faces surrounding him, 12 children and the Vraxian who had become so much more than a partner. Despite his injuries, despite the danger still pursuing them, he felt something unexpected. He felt like he had come home. The sanctuary world of New Haven existed in official records as an agricultural colony on the outer reaches of Confederation space. In reality, it served as refuge for those the system had failed, political dissidents, witnesses requiring protection, and now 12 rescued children. Kai stood on the balcony of their temporary quarters, watching twin suns set over rolling hills dotted with crystal formations that caught the light in rainbow fragments. His leg had mostly healed over the past month, though he still walked with a slight limp, a permanent reminder of their narrow escape. Behind him, the sounds of dinner preparation filled their dwelling, children's laughter mixing with the clatter of dishes and Nixara's melodic humming. Domestic sounds he'd never imagined would become the rhythm of his life. "Marshal Reeves." He turned to find Counselor Thara approaching, her Elridian features serene but serious. As one of New Haven's founders and its representative to the Galactic Council, she had been instrumental in arranging their sanctuary. "Just Kai now," he reminded her, "I'm not a marshal anymore." "Perhaps not in title," she joined him at the railing, "but your actions embodied the highest ideals of the service." He shook his head. "We broke every regulation in the book. And saved 12 lives, exposed corruption at the highest levels of galactic enforcement." She handed him a data crystal. "The evidence you and Nixara gathered was irrefutable." Kai examined the crystal. The council accepted it. Director Vanth tendered his resignation 3 days ago. Deputy Director Mercer and 7 other officials have been taken into custody. Her voice hardened. And Eclipse Syndicate operations in 3 sectors have been dismantled. Relief washed through him, though tempered with caution. Eclipse has deep roots. "Indeed, which is why your testimony will be crucial in the coming investigations." He tensed. "We can't return to Confederation space. Not yet, these children will remain under protection," she assured him. "Your testimony can be given remotely. And when this is over, the Council wishes to offer you both full reinstatement with commendations." The offer hung in the air, a return to their former lives. Before he could respond, a small figure burst onto the balcony. "Kai, dinner ready." Miri tugged at his hand, her tendrils swaying with excitement. "Nix made special soup." "I'll be right there," he promised. The child paused, noticing Counselor Thara. With the formal grace characteristic of her species, she bowed slightly. "You stay eat too, we have enough." Thara smiled, clearly charmed. "I would be honored." Inside, they found organized chaos. The long table was set haphazardly but with obvious care. Nixara directed the older children in serving while simultaneously preventing the Lumary twins from floating up to the ceiling, a newly discovered ability they found endlessly entertaining. Counselor Nixara acknowledged, her scales shifting to formal purple. "We weren't expecting you." "I invited her for dinner," Miri announced proudly. "Then we are pleased to have you," Nixara responded, shooting Kai a questioning glance. They settled around the table, a bizarrely perfect family of mixed species. Elian, now speaking more frequently, sat between Kai and Nixara as had become his custom. The Arcturian had recovered enough that its scales now glistened with healthy iridescence. The draconian teenager, Tella, helped serve the younger ones with surprising patience. As they ate, Counselor Thara observed them with thoughtful eyes. Finally, she set down her utensils. "The council has been discussing permanent arrangements for the children," she said carefully. "Several families on New Haven have expressed interest in adoption." A hush fell over the table. The children exchanged worried glances. "All 12 will find homes here?" Nixara asked, her secondary eyes narrowing. "Indeed, safe, loving homes with families experienced in cross-species adoption." Thara hesitated. "Of course, keeping siblings together is a priority and considering established bonds." Elian's small hand found Kai's under the table, gripping with surprising strength. On his other side, Miri pressed closer. "Stay with you," Elian whispered. "It wasn't a question." Kai met Nixara's gaze across the table. In her 4 eyes, he saw the same certainty he felt in his core, a decision neither of them needed to verbalize. "Counselor," he said carefully, "what would be involved if Nixara and I wish to make permanent arrangements for some of the children ourselves?" The Elridian's expression softened. "I suspected you might ask. The paperwork has already been prepared." Later that night, after the children had been settled and Thara had departed, Kai and Nixara stood again on the balcony. The crystal formations glowed faintly in the moonlight, creating an ethereal landscape. 3 children, Nixara mused, her scales shifting in the patterns that indicated deep emotion. A human Vraxian couple raising Cetarian, Tetrillian, and whatever species Miri might be. Unconventional, Kai acknowledged. Unprecedented, she turned to face him, scales rippling with blue luminescence, the Vraxian expression of love. "Are you certain you don't wish to return to the service? It was your life for 16 years. He reached out, tracing the pattern of scales along her arm, a gesture that had become intimate between them. "It was my job," he corrected. "This is my life now." She moved closer, the familiar scent of her, something like cinnamon and thunderstorms enveloping him. The council offered full reinstatement. "And what would we do with 3 children on patrol missions?" he smiled. "Besides, New Haven needs security consultants, legitimate work that keeps us planetside." "A normal life," she said, testing the concept. "As normal as possible for a human Vraxian family with 3 alien children." Her laugh was like music, a sound that had become increasingly common as the weeks passed. She pressed her forehead to his, their private gesture of connection. "I never imagined this outcome when we boarded that freighter," she whispered. "No," he agreed, pulling her closer, "something much better." Inside, a soft chime alerted them to movement in the children's rooms. They found Elian standing in the doorway of his chamber, face troubled. "Bad dream?" Nixara asked, kneeling to his level. He nodded, then asked in his still hesitant voice, "Forever family, promise." Kai joined them, creating a circle of 3. "Promise," he said firmly. "We are bound now," Nixara added, using the formal Vraxian phrase for family commitment. "Across stars and time." Satisfied, Elian allowed himself to be tucked back into bed. As he drifted towards sleep, his telepathic abilities, growing stronger as he healed, brushed against their minds. Not words, but feelings, security, belonging home. Returning to their own room, Kai pulled Nixara close, their bodies fitting together despite different biologies. Her scales glowed softly in the darkness, illuminating their shared space with gentle blue light. "Forever family," he echoed, testing the weight of the words and finding them perfect. "Across stars and time," she completed, sealing the promise with a kiss that bridged worlds. Outside their window, New Haven's moons cast silver light across a landscape of new beginnings. The path that had brought them here, a routine inspection, a hidden compartment, a desperate escape, seemed fated now, each step leading inexorably to this moment. They had set out to save 12 lost children, never expecting that in the process they would find themselves.